The Simone Feiler Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
Thrilled to be chatting with Louise Grayhurst, a domestic violence and family law attorney whose book, This Stops With Me, Recovering from the Abusive and Narcissistic Mother and Making Sure You Don't Become One, offers a compassionate, brutally honest and research-backed guide to breaking free from narcissistic relationships, which I'm quite sure most of us are familiar with one or two. Written from both personal experience and professional expertise, Louise's book dives deep into the insidious nature of narcissism within families, particularly focusing on the profound impact it can have on one's mental and emotional well-being. This Stops With Me is Louise's first published book and soon to be released audiobook, as we've just spent the last 7 hours in the studio with Louise delivering her outstanding narration. Welcome to the Simone Feiler Podcast, Louise.
Thanks so much, Simone. I've really enjoyed this experience.
Oh, fantastic. So have I. Your book is amazing. I had to remind myself, as I do with quite a few authors, that, oh, hey, you're working here, getting really involved in the story, tears flowing. So firstly, let's talk about how you found your experience narrating it. How was it for you?
Well, I think it was really, really comfortable and easy because of the environment that you created. And, when you start off on this journey, and maybe others can relate, that you obviously do, you chat to a few people and you phone around. And when I phoned you, I just knew straight away this was the place that I needed to be to narrate my book. So that was very, very comforting. So it was actually really, really easy. I mean, you saw me. I sat with my coffee and I had everything all there. I was even doing my tree pose while doing it. It was so comforting and easy.
You did say that. Yeah. You actually did your tree pose.
Yeah, a couple of times. My knees were getting a bit sore in there, but it was so comfortable.
You must have practiced, because that was outstanding. You delivered that like a boss. I said that a few times.
Well, you did give me tips, and I am a good student, so I did go and practice, and it actually did prepare me. It really does. It's good to hear your voice, because a lot of people don't like hearing their voices.
That's very true.
And some words will trip you up, and sometimes your tongue actually does get in the way. So I learned that water really is your saving grace.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. Keep yourself well hydrated in the booth, and it'll help your mouth get around the words. So, okay, let's find out a little bit about you, Louise. This Stops With Me combines both your professional expertise as a family law attorney and your personal experiences. But what inspired you to write this book, and why did you feel compelled that you should share your story?
I was sort of at a bit of a crossroads, and I was looking for something, a bit of an outlet, and I thought, okay, a writing project, because writing has always interested me. I always used to journal as a young girl, and I love poetry. I love to just scribble and write a couple of lines of poetry. So I just started writing, and I thought, well, write what you know. And it was a bit of a combination between the domestic violence, my passion for domestic violence and trying to help other women. And then it was this very long history and transformation with going through and processing, leaving this abusive relationship with my mother. And I just started writing, and I didn't stop. Yeah.
It must have been a very cathartic exercise, writing it out.
Yeah, it was. But the thing is, some things still come up and they trigger me, and I think, oh, wait, I need to go back and just deal with that a little bit more. But it was really good to see the progression and to look back and think, oh, geez, I wasn't crazy. This really needed to end. This was a really toxic relationship. And so it was a really good sort of get back to basics sort of exercise. It was good.
In your book, you speak about the devastating effects of narcissistic behaviour, particularly within families. Can you elaborate on some of the key signs of narcissism that people might not immediately recognise, and maybe some of the first things that your mother presented that you sort of thought, hang on, this is not good?
I think two things spring to mind. I think the gaslighting, this very sort of subtle tactic that abusers they sort of just very quietly put it back on you, to a point where you actually don't realize that they've just questioned your experience or your belief or your boundary. And so that's a very, very subtle first sign. The other one, which I think comes to mind, would be how much someone really loves you, or appears to love you, but they're actually really hurting you, and they're loving you in a very mangled way. And I think I can see that looking back into people's childhoods and things, where these parents come across like, oh, I love my child so much. And they might be at all the football games and all the choir concerts and all of that, but you just don't see the action in a loving way. It's more like they're ticking boxes. It's more like a functional relationship. And a lot of people don't see that. So you've got to really read in between the lines with some of these clever, abusive parents.
I guess there's all sorts of different narcissistic traits and behaviours that people have. How old were you when you realised, like, I'm not being parented, I'm being abused?
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because narcissism sits on a spectrum. So it's like some parents will have more of these traits and will be more pronounced and severe than others. So my recollection of this, I think my mom was a very good, as they call, like a childhood mother. She was very good with all the school stuff, and she'd sort of be there, well, more for my older brother and my sister. But then I think it's when we all started this teenage stage, and we were all trying to flex our muscles a bit, or try and...
Like teenagers do.
Yeah, which is so normal.
Yeah.
You want to dress a certain way, you want to date a certain boy or whatever, and all of a sudden that control that these parents have, or my mom had when we were younger, like, you will go to bed at 8 o'clock, and of course as a child you just do it.
Yeah.
When you get older, you start to push back on that boundary, and I would say that was the first time that I thought, oh, this is not feeling great. Like, I actually remember a friend of mine in year 12, and she commented to me one day, and she said, your mother's really jealous of you.
Wow.
And I thought, geez, I sort of knew it, and I thought, well, hell, if another girl is picking this up and she's my age, like, okay, I'm not far off here, So yeah, I'd say teenage years.
So what did she say? What made her think that she was jealous of you? That's pretty full on for a young teenager to think their mother's jealous of them.
I think because there were different things. The one was that no one in my family had really gone overseas back then. Back in those days, I sound old, but, overseas travel.
I like to say back in the day.
Yeah,
that's the cool.
Overseas travel wasn't like, easy. It was like if you went overseas, my goodness, wow. But I worked really hard because I held a leadership position at a Rotary Club and Interact, and I got sponsorship. I got these sponsors to pay for me to attend this leadership thing in Washington.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was bloody brilliant,
as a teenager.
Actually. But my family did not like that. My siblings felt very threatened because I was the youngest going overseas for the first time. And my mother didn't like that because she didn't understand why I had to, obviously try and raise this money. And I think she thought my dreams were far too big. So she really didn't like it. It wasn't something that was actually celebrated. It was almost like, oh, geez, look at you. Do you really need to do this? So that was the one thing. And then the other thing was definitely having a relationship with a boyfriend and me actually preferring to be at their house. I wanted to be in his family. I would have wished for them to have adopted me, and she could sense that. She did not like that relationship at all. So,
did you ever get a chance to talk to her about the respect that you were maybe getting from this other family that she wasn't giving you?
Oh, no, not back in those days. As a teenager, no, I would never have brought that up with her. As I got older, I did try and challenge her more and more, and she just wouldn't hear it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, the one day I was so broken, and I actually wrote her a letter, and we'd had one of our arguments, and I said to her, I've actually written you a letter and it will explain everything. But, I was trying to protect her, and I said, I don't think you're going to like this letter. I think it's going to make you sad. And she turned around and she said, well, then don't give it to me.
So she didn't even want to hear what you had to say.
She didn't even want to hear. Now, if that was my daughter, I would be like, yes, let me see, where am I going wrong? Tell me what's going on. But no, it would be too hard for her to confront the truth. So that letter just went in the bin.
Wow, that's devastating.
Yeah, it is.
Because you, as a young girl, but tried to take the time to actually explain to her, and her like not doing it.
Yeah,
kind of can see where it's heading there. So when you went overseas, just saying,
not a great mummy.
So when you went overseas to Washington, how was life for you then without that influence?
It was great. I knew that what I was doing was something that I was proud of. But funny enough, my mother actually emailed, we had this like support for parents to email. And I was always worried about her back home. I did want to hear from her. And she did, when I was away, I think she did miss me. So it's that constant push-pull, nice mom, horrible mom. It was this constant sort of emotional roller coaster, to a point where, you don't ever really, you're not really, as a child, you're not really anti your mother consistently.
No.
So you have this speckled, experience of these little drops of emotions and love where you think, oh, my mom's, she's contacted me, or she must be missing me. She must be proud of me. Wonderful. Meanwhile, she's obviously had a bad day and she can't get hold of the other 3 siblings. So, she emails to see where I am, So yeah, it was that constant emotional turmoil.
Yeah. So when you would speak to her on the phone before the demise of the relationship, did she ever ask about you and how you are and what you're doing and that sort of thing?
When in my adult teenage,
after you left home, obviously you left home because you're from South Africa.
Yes.
Did you go back home after your Washington trip?
Oh yes. So I went home. That was just a very brief sort of leadership course overseas. My mom actually immigrated and left. So after I finished school, I left home straight away because my mother married a man that I did not approve of.
Oh, okay.
And that was the other thing, was that he didn't like me either because I asserted my boundaries. And it was a very bad relationship. It was an abusive relationship. And I said to my mom, what are you doing? And anyway, he really didn't like me. So when he proposed to her, he went and asked permission of all 3 other siblings except me.
Oh, dear.
So then she goes and marries him. And I just thought, what are you doing? You're not checking in with me,
Yeah.
So
you felt a little bit irrelevant.
Completely, you know. And so after school, I very quickly exited and I didn't stay with her. And then their marriage fell apart, which is actually a good thing. And she just said, I'm doing this for your good. I can see you all right now. I'm going to immigrate. So I was like, oh, all right. I'm 20, but I know you don't like, and I was dating my future husband at the time. She didn't like him either. But then all of a sudden, when it suited her, she was like, no, you've met your husband. I can see you're in a good place. I'm out of here. I'm immigrating. And I thought, okay. Still, it hadn't quite clicked, that was not really, Mom, So, yeah, so she immigrated, and so we would chat on the phone, every now and again, but you just didn't know what to expect with her.
Mm. And then how long did you stay there before you came to Australia?
Oh, that was probably about, my maths, Simone. I don't know, maybe I think I immigrated when I was 30. Maybe I stayed there for another 10 years or 11 years. Yeah, so...
and why Australia?
Well, Australia...
Why not? Seriously, everyone's saying.
Well, Australia is actually... the climate is very similar to South Africa.
Yeah.
And so there was just better business opportunities here. And we just liked that sort of tropical climate lifestyle. But yeah, I do miss terribly the African wildlife. I really miss that Australia has nothing on the African wildlife.
Yeah.
But yeah, Australia's been home for us, and we're citizens, and we absolutely love this place.
And you've now got 2 children of your own, which you do talk about in the book. How you obviously aren't parenting the way your mum parented. Your 2.
No.
You've learned from her mistakes.
Yes. No, she actually resisted me because my husband's, he actually took custody of his children from his previous marriage. So I became stepmommy and children to my own. And yes, it was just a conscious decision not to hurt them, just not to hurt them. I don't want my children to have to go to therapy over me one day. I don't want them to have to sit there and say, oh, this is what my mother did. And I know that we all mess up, but I think the key with parenting, and I had to apologize to my daughter the other day, but I think the biggest thing you can do is to apologize when you mess up. If you say something hurtful, I mean, we all lose our rag with our kids, especially teenagers, but just go back and correct it and pull out that barbed wire criticism or comment or action, and just say, hey, you know what? I lost my cool. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. And then also make it known that you won't do it again, because it's pointless that you become this repeat parent that keeps on saying sorry, but actually doesn't change your action. So hold yourself to account.
I think that's a great idea, apologising and admitting you're wrong when you are wrong. It puts you on an even playing field. It doesn't intimidate them, and it makes them probably warm to you more, that they say, wow, you actually admitted you were wrong for once.
Yeah. Because I do
Not for once.
I think a lot of parents think that, everything in moderation. I think when the children are younger, that you're this authority, but you have to, there's everything in moderation, and you have to actually let them be individuals. They have to push back a little bit. You have to let them speak out and use their fierce little voice,
Exactly, especially when they get to teenage years, because that's how they find independence,
That voice becomes even more fierce, yes.
Well, yeah, the more independence you let them have, I guess, the more they can trust themselves and realise that they can do it on their own. And, they'll also, I think, be thankful to you for giving them that independence, obviously warning them of any issues that could happen out there in the big world, but otherwise you might just get a door slammed. But do you think it's generational, that people from olden days and our parents, that they didn't actually have a clue how to parent in a different way? Saying that maybe from some experience.
Yes, I think...
Saying it for a friend.
I think that, thank heavens, we are lifting the lid on mental health and the various sort of the damage that gets left, behind with all of us after the abuse. I think that in our parents' generation, no, I don't think anyone spoke about narcissism. I don't think anyone really brought to the front about some of these traits on the spectrum. And I think their generation really wasn't introspective. They really weren't reflective and, well, what did my dad do? What am I doing to you? Like I remember my dad, all we sort of knew was, well, my dad's not supposedly very affectionate because his dad wasn't affectionate. But no one would actually drill down deeper. It was just sort of like,
that's what it was, never asking why.
Yeah, we never really unpeeled those layers. And I think that in some way it didn't help, obviously, that generation, but in some ways it did, because a lot of those perpetrators actually, like my mom, that was really good that we didn't really question and hold her to account. We just sort of accepted, she was the way she was, that is her generation, and we just had to deal with her then onslaught and her misguided, parenting.
That's right. And you got the brunt of it. I mean, your siblings are still kind of in denial that she's like that, or maybe accepted it, but just still putting up with it.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I'm the youngest, and because we've just reconnected, it's like they acknowledge elements of her, or aspects of her personality or of this abuse, but no one wants to talk about it. It's a bit of a sensitive topic because they know that I want to talk about it, and they know very much where I sit with my mother because they know very well that I do not speak to my mother. So I was always vilified, and my sister used to contact me out of the blue for some years and say, we can't understand why you have done this to our mother. And so that's what, so everyone knew my position. No one ever took the time to say, but why? Can you tell me a bit more? And they all know my position with my father. because my dad comes to stay with me, for many months at a time. So we sort of are talking a bit more. They know some of my reasons, but I do not see them anytime soon breaking away from that authority and that sort of lineage. No.
You had a bit of a falling out with all of them to begin with, didn't you?
Yes.
So how long was that for?
So eventually I was going through a very hard time in my life, and I just thought, if this is how you think you're supporting me, then I don't know, I really don't need this family in my life. And, they were all chiming in behind my back, and obviously my mother was the lead chief, as I call her.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no ways, if this is what a brother is, or this is what a sister is, well, geez, I'm out of here. And I broke up with each one of them and my mother. So it was like a real whammy of a year.
Yeah, that must have been so hard.
And they were furious. Once again, nobody actually said, oh, geez, can we talk? What is this about? So yeah, I did break up with them.
So did you get the support? Obviously, your husband must have been a support through that time for you. You'd need someone to fall back on when you're going through, like a breakup, not only with your mum, but your siblings as well, and it's over, trying to stand your ground.
Yeah.
What did your husband say?
Well, it's an interesting thing. I don't think he really knew the depth of this pain and how it led to other areas in my life, like the comfort eating. I don't think he really realized why I was so depressed, or why I battled with my perfectionism, and to be honest, I don't think I knew either. I don't think I realized I was doing the comfort eating. So that was really hard for him. I literally had to try and explain to him, let's go back. Let me give you examples. Because as I unpacked my mental health, I had to almost teach him and say, do you remember when that happened? I would have liked you to have done that for me, or at least been a bit of more of a gatekeeper for me, because he honestly thought this little old woman was, just a little bit like she had no filter, or, like it wasn't as damaging as what it is. But now, I think he fully gets it. And my girlfriends were very good. Funny enough, my girlfriends, I think because maybe of their own experiences with mother-in-laws or their own mothers, they got it more, I think, because they had a lot of that sort of that jealousy, which lies under that veil of narcissism from other female figures in their life.
So what strategies, when you first broke away, then going through all of that and getting the support from your friends, did you implement to get over it, to make this final decision when you said, right, I've had enough? What were some of the strategies that you went through?
I think for me, I think there was no other, because I tried the managing whole aspect of trying to keep her but accept her, that, oh, there she goes again. Moments of trying to manage the relationship where, I was saying to myself, let's try and breathe, let's manage this. It was like dealing with a little bomb each time. And eventually, and it won't be like this for everyone, but eventually I just got so tired and I thought, why do you keep on throwing these bombs at me? And so for me, my coping strategy was to actually go and cut off. And that was after a few times I'd broken up with her.
It wasn't just, you just didn't make the decision one day. It was an ongoing thing.
I actually went back to her a few times, and my friend said to me, she said, Louise, if you go back to her one more time, she says, please don't come to me for advice.
Wow, that's when you know it's serious.
And I thought, okay, this really sounds like I'm in an abusive relationship. This sounds like one of my clients. So for me, taking that space and digitally blocking her was the best strategy for me, because and digitally blocking my siblings even, because no one could get hold of me. And
that would give you some time to get some space to think.
It did. And it was years. I think it was possibly 5 years. It was for my siblings. And it was great actually to know that, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you're doing in your life. You don't know what I'm doing in mine. It was great taking that space.
It's a remarkable story that a lot of people wouldn't be brave enough to write about and then release it. So you said that you'd written it out. Did you get encouragement from someone saying, look, there's other people that are dealing with this and you need to help them?
Yeah, I just, I think when I wrote it, I think I realized, okay, there's a rawness here that I think some people need to hear, because I know there's not just me. I've read so many books. You hear of people, people loosely talk about narcissism. And I know that there are so many women and men. I look at my brothers and I just think, oh, shucks, can't you just be kinder to yourself, or just believe in yourself more? I can see where it's coming from, and I wish they would just identify it and then, process it. So for me, it was just a thing of, you need to write this book. I don't know why, whether it's, the universe thing, or it was like, I need to tick this off on my bucket list or whatever. And then funny, when I did publish it, the reviews, because I didn't tell anyone. So the next thing, these reviews started coming in, and I started reading the reviews. It was from men and women. And they brought me to tears, because I thought, wow, people are really suffering with this stuff. Like, they are still stuck there. And wow, just for all of us to know that we're all okay, and we're all there together, and whatever method you use or whatever peace you find in whatever way, great, you owe it to yourself. So even now when I get reviews, I love it, and I immediately think of that person, and I send them really good energy, because it's really a special thing, the journey that they're on.
Yeah. And how does it make you feel now that you have written it and gone through this process, that you're actually helping people?
That is the most rewarding. It's like I'm talking to a younger version of myself, and it's sort of like that caring sort of relationship where I'm just so glad that if this helps just one or two people, fantastic. That is the best news, So
that's wonderful. And I found it very enlightening when I was listening to it. Like I said, I shed quite a few tears, and can see certain aspects of mine and other people's lives that these things might be going on just quietly.
Yeah.
But what about your little girl? Obviously you were broken and hurt and felt unloved and unworthy. Is she healed?
Oh, yeah. You mean me? And
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about my daughter. Like, straight away, I'm like, oh, my daughter. 100%. But, I should be careful with saying that to people, because I don't believe you're ever fully healed. I think, like, I'm so content, and I'm peaceful, and I'm happy. But there will always be, like we talk about, so everyone mentions these triggers. And when you are faced with a little bit of I call it a test or a trigger, you've got to make sure that, okay, are we fully healed? Are we okay? Because that upset me, or I felt that burn in my chest, or I couldn't sleep last night. I kept on replaying it over and over. And that's why it's always good to don't be afraid of that. Don't think that you failed and, I thought I was healed.
Yeah.
No, it's like, this is an ongoing process. You might have healed, like your 90% of all that horrible stuff, but this is life, and there is so much more healing to do,
A lot of people would be thinking, I don't think I could ever say goodbye to my mum or dad or whoever it is that's abusing them in a narcissistic way, just to have the courage to finally say, I'm not doing it. How did you do that? How did you do that and say, I'm not going back, it's done?
I think, it's a bit like an abusive relationship, an intimate abusive relationship, because so many people are faced with this where they really do love that person. And I really did love my mom. I mean,
you could feel that.
Adored her. She was my everything. And in fact, I was actually called a mommy's girl when in my childhood, before I got to teenagehood. But I think I tolerated her because I didn't love myself. And I think when you get to a place where you fully respect yourself and you love yourself and you've unpacked why you felt so awful all these years, and the common denominator comes out all the time pointing to this abusive person, I think eventually you say to yourself, whether it's a husband or whether it's an adult child, or whether it's your mother or father, you say to yourself, oh, I'm not doing this. I don't care who you are in my life, but if you cannot behave and if you cannot treat me with respect, then I'm not sticking around for this. And I think that was the turning point. Was I'd done the healing work. I loved myself. I finally got to know myself, and I thought, oh, this is for the birds. Like, I'm out of here. But it takes a really long time and a couple of goes of breakups, maybe, well, for me anyway, where you slowly start to break up with that person emotionally, you know.
Yeah.
And they even talk about that with leaving marriages. Some people say that, you know, for the partner that gets left, they say, oh, this came out of left field. Where did this come from? I didn't know, you know, he was unhappy or she was unhappy. And then you speak to the person that left, and they say, I was checking out years ago.
Yeah,
it's like that with a relationship with your, you know, father or mum. That
narcissistic.
Yeah.
So anybody that's going through that at the moment and finding themselves in the same situation, thinking, yeah, I'm done and I've been through this, what would you recommend their first steps to sort of empower themselves, like you have, to get out of there? And would you?
Oh, I would definitely empower and encourage anyone, whatever in whatever situation, if they are unhappy and if they are struggling and if they feel, you know, inside themselves they're scared or they're unsure or they feel uneasy in life, you know, and you'll know that feeling. I encourage them to do something different, and if they've been doing a certain type of therapy all those years and it hasn't worked, then change that modality. Or if you've never done therapy, go and start tapping into the emotional stuff inside yourself. Go and try different healing techniques. Go and start doing the investigation. And I wouldn't leave it. Don't leave it. Time is everything.
That's right. So true.
You know, why waste your time?
Yeah, and your life doing
and
that.
Your life, you know.
So what about contacting you? People, can they reach out to you if they, you know, need some guidance or advice, or are you going to be taking this to stages and helping people?
Well, you know, I do write under a pseudonym. So, but yeah, look, I have got my email address there, and I would love to hear from people. I'd love to know about your journey, you know, and it is so great. That's why I do put my contact details there, because I'd love to hear from people and form a community. You know, I can't really give any advice, but all I can say is I've been there, done that, and how fantastic that divorce was, you know. And yes, you know, sometimes making that massive change, and not just the breaking up or the managing aspect, but more about changing those false beliefs that you had. If you were told as a child that, I don't know, you were fat, or you were not academic enough, or you were too sensitive, that is the stuff. Like, go get that sorted out, because that will just sit in you, and you probably don't even...
That's what's bringing people down.
That is it.
They're thinking they're not good enough.
They're still sitting as a 3-year-old or as an 8-year-old thinking, geez, I'm never going to make that team. So then they don't go and try and, I don't know, learn a new skill or try and take a promotion at work, because they just sit quietly in life. And it's so sad. I would say to people, go and sort that stuff out. And you probably find that once you've sorted that stuff out and you understand why the way you are and why you pick the same romantic partners the way you do, I think from that it'll just flow on to, are we going to manage this relationship with this person, or are we completely getting out?
Great advice. Great book. I've loved working with you. It's been it's been really good fun. You're awesome. You're such fun, and obviously you're so much lighter now that you've gone through the healing process of going through all of that, and now writing it, which is cathartic for you but helping many people. This Stops With Me, such a powerful title. Yeah. Breaking the intergenerational and generational trauma for the rest of your family, the rest of your kin. How amazing.
Yeah, it's got to stop with you.
Yeah.
You know.
So you've got a website?
Yes.
And what's that?
So it's louisegrayhurst.com. And I've got my Instagram, which I try very hard. I'm not great at social media. And I've got Facebook, and I have tried TikTok. My daughter really tries to help me with that stuff. But yeah, I've got a few platforms. And
okay, so we can find you on TikTok.
Hopefully you'll find me somewhere.
I'm on TikTok on Audiobook Australia.
Oh,
so
geez.
yeah, so we'll follow each other.
Okay, yeah, you're probably my few followers. Yeah, great.
It's been so good working with you and chatting with you on my
Simone.
podcast today. Thank you, Louise.
Thank you so much, Simone. It's really been a very positive experience. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler podcast.
What's your story?
Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.